do. All right, we are live. Let me make sure that everything is set up correctly. All right, that is correct. I still don't know how to get our comments during the stream in the live dashboard, which puzzles me for Streamplace. So I'm going to just go to our channel.
Do we have comments on YouTube? We have chat on YouTube as well?
Yeah, we do, but nobody ever posts from there.
Yeah. What is this YouTube anyway?
Yeah, the place where we put our VOD.
Right. It's a distribution platform.
Yeah. Let's see. You can say, "Hey, everybody, welcome to August 1st, August 1, and today's episode." It's a bit silly for me to say what I'm typing when I'm pasting it into our chat.
Our brains work.
Oop. 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 No, okay, fine. All right, whatever. Oh, okay, fine.
Oh, right. I should tell people we're live.
Yeah, that's the thing You start doing that.
Oh, you
and
were
then we
doing
can
it.
actually kick things off.
Okay, I will do that. I'll do
yes,
that.
please.
All right. Boop, boop, boop. Live now. And then the Streamplace link.
Yeah. And then I'm going to try and manage a cajillion windows at the same time on two very tiny screens.
Okay, now I switch back to me.
I'm going to move OBS over here so we can see what's going on. We'll put our chats here. And then I'm going to grab our notes back. Back over here. All right. Hi, Dan.
Hey, Ted.
How's your week been?
I've been accidentally writing some code.
And what kind of code have you been accidentally writing?
I wrote code that is completely 100% organic. There were no GPTs involved whatsoever, and I have been doing a bunch of stuff with vision language models. It's been very exciting.
Amazing.
You can show them pictures of things and then ask questions about them, and well enough for it to work most of the time, which is exciting for a thing that I'm working on.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable, all of the things that you can make a computer do now. And I, as somebody who came up through linguistics, just basically skipped most of the like hardware related things in CS curricula, or like just did parts of it. And now I'm like, hey, actually, all of the hardware that you can buy and tinker around with is remarkably accessible.
Yes.
And you can get Raspberry Pis for relatively cheap, and cameras that attach to them, and little batteries, and do all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah. I have not done. Yeah, I've not yet done the thing which I would have been able to, which you've been able to do for a really long time, which is to set up a Raspberry Pi and a camera, or even just a camera, and then get it to say when my dog is near the door, or when my cat is near the door, or even there's the thing that you can get that does identifies birds and stuff.
Yeah,
Just,
I've got so I'm running BirdNet Pi,
yeah.
and get a little dashboard of all of the birds that are singing nearby me. That is powered ultimately by the TensorFlow models that the Cornell Ornithology Lab put out, which I think is very.
They missed a thing not calling that bird pie.
Yes. Well, the Ornithology Lab didn't build it, and the other people who built it clearly did miss that opportunity. But then it's also a bunch of PHP scripts hacked together. So
Isn't the internet a bunch of PHP scripts tapped together? Running
Increasingly not,
a
thankfully.
portion of it. I thought WordPress powered at least one third of the web.
Yeah.
It would be rude to say that that was PHP script tacked together. There are people, very, very smart people,
Yeah.
working on WordPress.
Yeah. Um, so what do you want to talk about today? Or should we say what we're doing here? This is Hunt Han Combat episode 8, I think.
8, very lucky, very auspicious.
Yeah, indeed. And today we're going to talk about things. Some catch up.
We're going to keep talking about the human internet and how good it should be. And oh, right, we talked about this before, whether technology is meeting society's needs.
Yes.
In a technologically mediated society. That's me reading things that we wrote down before that we thought were important enough to remember.
I'm enjoying the fact that our friends, we came up with this name, or I should say, I came up with this name a long time ago and then pestered you into the fact that we're doing a podcast now. But I have been enjoying the slow roll on everybody that we know finding out about the podcast name. So,
we should get Chris on.
Yeah,
we should. Yeah, actually, we should get Chris on.
Yeah, that would be excellent.
Is Chris where Chris was before?
Yes, Chris, I believe is still
beginning with the K.
No, Chris, I believe, is still at Slack doing accessibility product management stuff, which has been fascinating to interact with them over. We were both invited to a Mattermost in the past year, and then we're trying to figure out how the heck this thing was supposed to work.
I'm thinking of a different Chris.
Yeah.
Shoo.
Well, this is the challenge with people with Asian names that have been anglicized.
Yes. Fortunately, our Asian names have been anglicized in slightly different ways.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But wait, we were talking about some. Yes. So the only reason why I'm on this podcast is because the name is too good to waste.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why we're doing the podcast entirely. Yes. This is entirely how long we can run with this bit.
Yeah. People have started things for worse reasons. So last week we were talking with Kendra, and they were amazing about itch.
Yeah. And generally speaking, service providers and their ability to exert and leverage power and the essentially policy and governance that those service providers have, whether those are actual government regulators in the case of age verification for work games, and which there was sort of a hue and cry about. And as a consequence, the internet has risen up and instead done what the internet does and counter protest. And there are now quite a lot of people who have called MasterCard, which I now have up on screen.
Oh, you're back. Yeah.
Oh, did I drop out for a second?
Yeah, you did, but you're back now.
Oh, bummer.
That's great.
Hopefully the stream didn't drop. Did the stream drop?
It did a bit. It did a bit, but it's back now.
Okay. Cool. Stream health. Error. Poor. YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming.
I wasn't either on the Zoom end, but it seems to have recovered now.
Hey, Fern. I'm glad that I'm back. Yeah, so at any rate, Visa and MasterCard have both been harassed enough that they have come up with PR answers to whether or not they are regulating everybody's speech. And their answer is, no, we're not trying to regulate speech, but we do have policies. So,
we're just not doing certain things anymore, and not letting. We are refusing to deal with clarifying recent headlines on gaming content.
Yeah, and so Itch now has has gone ahead and relisted any and not safe for work content that is free to download. Uh,
Okay.
and so that's a step, but what they're really trying to do now is work out with Stripe um, and others what type of policies. Stripe has basically come out and said, um, we basically don't do anything with uh, anything that is related to sexual gratification, which is
Oh,
a lot. Um,
love being a lawyer.
yeah. So um, one wonders if there are websites that have pictures of feet on them. I guess the question is whether they're selling pictures of feet. Um, anyway, so yeah, there's
I
so,
mean, you would have to prove that you were not being sexually gratified by looking at pictures of feet then,
right.
which
I mean, it's basically the like we know it when we see it
right,
type of
yeah.
conversation, right? So
Yeah.
what can one do? But there has been movement around that, and I guess I've also been talking with some developers around whether it'd be possible to do game listings on App Proto, which I'm excited about and interested in poking it further. So,
Yes, that makes a lot of sense because for a long time you have been talking about storefronts and discovery.
yeah. So the ability for people to do their own listing and maybe own hosting, right? I mean, ultimately, again, the lever point here is at the point of purchase. Um,
Yes.
but maybe there are ways around more loosely coupling that. So,
Yes.
yeah. People are a
Yes.
little bit more mad about age verification now too. I've started seeing videos on
Yeah.
Instagram about it. Yeah,
Turns out people in the UK are, on the one hand, while they are for protecting the children, they are not for things that are inconvenient and require them to install VPNs to do what they think has nothing to do with keeping children safe. That's my rough understanding, and everyone is completely unsurprised at the fact that VPN apps have been racing up store charts. I think in iOS and Google Play
yeah, yeah. It's going to be interesting to
because
see what the because you're going to end up with the patchwork quilt of regulations around um, access. But what does that practically mean? Does that practically just mean that everybody's going to have a VPN exit point in California? Maybe.
I mean, but we already have a patchwork quilt,
Yeah.
do we not? Right. So it's only that the patchwork quilt is becoming more obvious, or and the UK gets to do whatever it wants because it jumped out of the wonderfully harmonizing EU. So it can do whatever it wants now, until it figures out that it's easier to not do whatever it wants.
Yeah.
Um, and Australia as well. Didn't Australia came out with something and said if you're under 16 or you have a YouTube account that's under 16, you can't actually YouTube,
Yep.
or you won't be allowed to YouTube.
Yep. Starting, I
Um,
think, December. I forget what date in December, but sometime in December.
right, right. Um, and my eldest kid wants to play Roblox, and I don't want them to.
Yeah.
But um, so age verification is just going to keep happening. Um, isn't it going to be like? Do we not think it'll just be announced at WWDC or something next year that it can be handled at the OS level? Like
That's a
you
terrifying
can you
thought.
can you can attest once, right? So it's like whatever states have electronic driver's license support, right? So your very rough chain of trust in my head is the state issues a driver's license. If you can assure that the link between the person using the device and the driver's license is as secure as a state is happy to accept, then you only need to be able to unlock your device, and then maybe there's something that can provide a token based on your driver's license that is sufficiently anonymous. Oh, do we have almost
Awesome.
nerds night? We're going to find out. So it's going to be really interesting to see what Ben wears, what our guest is wearing when he comes in. Ta-da! You did.
The
You put a
challenger
shirt
appears.
on.
Hello.
Challenger appears.
Hi, Ben.
Hi.
How you doing?
Doing right.
Yeah, good.
Good.
We are
Good.
chatting about bullshit. And
Well, you're chatting about ID verification in the UK, right? Which is actually like I haven't lived there in whatever the year is, 14 years, and I'm still
Same.
really mad about it. I'm like, what are you people doing? It's
Oh, it's what we get with a Labour government, right? It's exactly what we would expect from a Labour government.
I'm just vibrating quietly.
Tony's government would have done that, though. I think.
I mean, I think if Tony's
they
government
would've.
if they'd had this level of internet, they would have done a lot of
Yeah,
they would have done a lot of things. Yeah.
yeah. They had Reaper as well and everything and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we should
they've always
introduce
wanted.
who Ben is first, since he is our challenger and needs to be introduced. Ben writes a blog called Word.io. And the fun thing that he's been doing recently, although he's just announced that he's doing the concluding post, which is a series which is like, if I ran X, or if I ran Blue Sky Product, or if I ran Mastodon, which has been excellent. And I almost got him to talk about if he ran Colbert's Late Show, what he would do given the pending announcement, but I couldn't entice him all the way there. So instead, what I'm going to ask him is, what would you do if you were running our podcast, which you did not know about before half an hour ago?
Should we introduce him first before he does that?
Oh, sure.
Or should we just get him to do that and then introduce him, because then it'll be more confusing for people or funnier?
I'm fully confused at this point myself, but I will. What would I? Okay, hold on. What would I do if I was running this podcast? Is that's the? I don't know. Like, I actually don't like. I only interact with this on YouTube. Like, where else are you?
So this is actually a fun moment to actually talk about this, which is what Dan and I have been doing. Mostly, again, this is a really extended bit, but it was also an exercise in being able to figure out what streaming felt like now. And so we've done a little bit of streaming on Twitch. We've done a little bit of streaming on YouTube. We've also done streaming on Streamplace. And the interesting part about that is Streamplace is fully on at Proto. It was originally set up so that all of the comments on the stream posted to Blue Sky, and they decided that that was a little bit too noisy, and now you just get a channel on the side. But we're actually like currently broadcasting through at Proto, and anybody with an account can go log in and comment without having to do anything else, which is kind of cool. That's where we've been taking most of our comments, but we're also streaming to YouTube, and that's where we've been saving all of the files, which has been an interesting exercise in kicking the tires on a bunch of technology.
Yeah, that's super interesting, because when I searched for the podcast name, I was like, maybe I should be listening to what's happening before I actually join. It was YouTube is what comes up, so that's where I've seen sort of archived versions before. So I should be paying more attention in the atmosphere, very clearly, and that's. But yeah, I mean, like. So
I don't know, Ben. The atmosphere is pretty boring right now. It's just full of scolds, and you can't really make a joke unless you can't make a joke if you're a conservative commenter. That's what
have you been on Mastodon?
Yeah, yes, but
yes.
but weirdly, I'm not there anymore. No.
Well, the thing I keep telling people is there's a reason why do not reply cards exist, and Mastodon's reply culture is definitely part of that reason.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that fits. I have been flamed enough times now on Blue Sky. It's such a weird thing where if you say one particular set of things, you'll be reposted sky high. If you say a thing that is slightly running against a particular orthodoxy, you are screwed for the next 24 hours. And
What did you say? Whisper it.
I said something about AI at one point. There was something about AI.
Did you say that it could be all right and it could be useful?
but like in a really guarded way, where it's like it's
Right. That's why I
also
said
like
could be.
terrible. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a little bit, you know. I appreciate very much that it exists, and it's I would rather be on it than X, for example.
I imagine you're a class traitor if you use AI and if you think it could be used, if you think it could be good for things. Not you
Well, and you could,
personally. One could be seen
well,
as a class
I mean,
traitor.
and you got to understand, like politically, like I'm in generally in a line with those values. Like I am, you know, pretty left progressive. But I also like I think it's more nuanced than that, and it's maybe not completely polarized. And
Mhm.
there's a and it may be yes, there's no doubt in the world. Like Sam Altman is a very worrying human being, but there are ways
Mm.
to be involved that maybe don't go through those routes. And there's definitely ways to there's definitely things that come out of it that are potentially useful. Anyway, so that's an AI rabbit hole. But
Yeah,
what you
that's
could do,
different.
like if I was running this podcast, right,
Yeah.
what I'd do is I'd like take clips like that, right, where someone is just setting themselves up to be flamed on Blue Sky for another 24 hours. And I'll clip that down and I would release those clips across platforms and say, "Oh, can you believe what that guy said about AI?" And I would be and then like with a link to subscribe as well in
Right. Yeah.
addition to
Yeah.
the small clip. But I would keep embracing every platform, right? Like I
Yeah.
think I'll be posting them on Mastodon as well, on you know PeerTube. And like I think there's no winner, right? So I'll just be actually publishing on your own website as a central
Hmm.
publishing
Hmm.
platform, and then
Hmm.
just like making sure that people can find it wherever they are, and you're meeting people where they're at.
So what we need is some sort of really simple way to syndicate stuff that you put on your website onto other services.
Are you going to make me cry? Um, it's uh,
Because it's hard, because that's the whole point, isn't it? Right? It's really hard. It was easier when there was just one or two platforms that you could use, like Twitter when it was Twitter, and then you could reach, at least for whatever purposes, a reasonably large number of people to achieve what you wanted to achieve. But now it's in bits and pieces everywhere, which is good, but it's effort.
it's it's effort, and you have all these folks. Like the ecosystem was built for sort of this calcified version of the social web, where it was just
Yeah.
those few platforms, and you have all these people who are, you know, trained experts in being kind of audience managers, social media managers, and so on, who are also trained on just these platforms. And now it's suddenly this wide field that they've got to learn about, sort of with no tooling. Um, it's
And
hard.
did you see? I think I saw you post about this back when it would have been back when Threads, Mastodon, and Blue Sky were kind of like all in contention. And I remember a lot of different people talking about, okay, well, if you post on multiple platforms, do you take the time to customize and make sure that you post on whichever platform fits the tone of that platform? And that's one of the reasons why I don't anymore, because I cannot just simply, it feels shitty to me personally if I write something and I just post the same thing in different places. Um, because they are different spaces, they have different vibes, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean the
I,
vibe thing is interesting, but also like some of this is just like the engagement model too. I remember, you know, Twitter, of course, was the place, convening place for journalists for years and years and years. And there are people like Ezra Klein who came up in forum culture and would post to Twitter, but clearly did not read or engage with anybody at all.
Right. Yeah.
And so like
Yeah.
the question is like show up, but also how are you showing up? For what purpose are you showing
Right. Yeah. There's the I'm just posting and I'm not going to reply to anyone, which is significantly less um tiresome. And
well, people kind of get wise to it, right? And it's kind of they people want to have a conversation. I think it really depends, actually, is the honest truth. Like it's very you could like I'll be honest, like I don't I've got a demanding job and a toddler. I absolutely do copy and paste across the networks. It's and it doesn't always work out so badly. But I follow up with the conversations that show up on each one, and the conversations are wildly different. Like you can get flamed on
that's
one
true.
and like supported on another, like ignored on a third. It's super weird, not always predictable.
Yeah. I also resent not having a universal inbox anymore and having to, like, it feels like go to different physical spaces and places to have all of these different conversations, which again is fair because they are different places with different vibes. But again,
how many of us were Trillium users?
Yes.
Yeah. Another piece of early 2000s technology that probably nobody else remembers.
Are we supposed to get that back? Is the EU has the EU said that we need to have that back because of all the Signal and WhatsApp? I can't remember.
Great question. So the answer is yes. The DMA is supposed to require certain platforms to be able to integrate, and that is partly what the support for the MLS spec is about. So sorry, there's two aspects of this. There's MLS and what the heck is the text messaging standard the encrypted text messaging standard that Google and Apple now support. Yes, RCS as well. But I believe the intent was to have Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp also start to interconnect. But the standards that Facebook has put up for which service providers they will interconnect with is like really, really high. So like the question is like, will you ever be able to have Signal interact with WhatsApp? And the answer is like, I don't freaking know, man. Practical barriers so high that I don't know if anybody would ever drive it.
And the platform, and I think if I remember right, the platform owner has to do, it's on the onus of the platform owner to provide that integration. So they have to do it like n times rather than, oh, here's an open standard that it would be great for everyone to use or to be able to interoperate. And that's before you even get onto the shittiness of figuring out how to do end-to-end encryption on anything that crosses a boundary like that. We should all go to key parties and exchange our keys. That's what we should do. That'll fix it.
I mean, this is kind of the thing about Blue Sky. Well, actually, so this is an opportunity to talk about Germ, which just launched their beta. So Germ Networks is a little startup that has built an MLS-based secure messenger. And MLS is a standard that is, I believe, an IETF standard for end-to-end encrypted messaging. And one of the co-founders worked at Apple for a long time, done a bunch of stuff before. And the interesting thing that they've done is they have bootstrapped, they've built an integration that allows you to bootstrap your social graph for messaging from your Blue Sky identity. And that way, like I've put a link in my Blue Sky profile now that I'm part of the beta so that anybody on iOS can click on that link and start messaging with me, so long as there's somebody I follow.
Cool.
And that's an example of, taking that AT Proto identity and the PLC, which has your keys, and being able to bootstrap off of that, which I think is sort of an interesting way to do that type of integration. So, like,
have you actually used the Blue Sky integration of it? I've used it sort of without the integration. It's pretty cool, but yeah, you have.
Yeah. Anybody who hits me up on just goes to my profile on Blue Sky. There's a link there that if you click on that, I should probably actually open up my messenger then, if I'm going to throw that out there. So let me open up my phone.
I'm installing it right now.
Well, the fun and interesting part about it is that actually the app clip that they give you, they actually have a fully functional pseudonymous client that allows you to message people from the app clip directly. So you actually don't even need to install the app. It'll actually just run directly on iOS, which provides one of the smoothest onboardings into trying out an app I've ever seen in my life, and it's super cool.
Wow.
Now everybody's staring at their phones.
This is really Now everyone's like, oh right, I'm going to go do this thing. We'll edit this out in post. All those times we do post.
Yeah. So I mean, the interoperation conversation is interesting and complicated. What was the other thing I was going to ask Ben? We had a perfect transition into one of the other things that we were going to talk about, which is discourse setting, right? Like the interesting part about trying to post to all of these different platforms and trying to fit the vibe is like what is actually determining what the conversation is, what the takes are, and so forth, right? And like I almost want less a client that lets me post everywhere and more a like what's a thing that summarizes what the vibe is everywhere.
I mean, can you imagine? That's so hard to do. Can you imagine like early Blue Sky summarizing that vibe? There were
Alf.
there were people saying things about Alf that like were just came out of left field for me. I've never thought about Alf in that way, to be honest. And there it was, kind of front and center. And
Sixth form
so
common room.
you have a point. You have a point. I did go to one of those, and it was, yeah, that actually pretty much nails it.
Yeah,
Um,
the interesting part for me and Dan and I were talking a little bit about what is the utility of social platforms for both civic discourse and for governments in particular. And for me, there's a I was joking with some people about Mike Lee and his Twitter presence, who's a senator in the U.S. and he is from Utah, and he's basically a gigantic Twitter troll. And the thing that's crazy to me is like he's actually like that, as far as like I'm aware. And so like he's like the outcome you get when you start to optimize politics for engagement rather than like outcomes. And like that seems bad to me. Right. But like it's also where everybody is now, right? And so that comes back to like the discourse setting piece there is like who is actually like what is this thing for? Is it
well, and I think they try to be for everything, which I think is part of the problem, right? Like
Yes.
it's, I think of at the very least the separation between social networking, which is supporting existing communities, and social media, which is sort of more like a broadcast kind of wider conversation. And I think like you can obviously break it down in a much more nuanced way than that, but it's very then you start getting into not just vibes but purpose, as you say, like and being able to actually attach to a particular purpose. But if you're trying to connect with your friends and share sort of jokes and plans in exactly the same forum that the Department of Homeland Security is sharing. Actually, that's a terrible example. Sharing Nazi memes at the moment, but like
Yes.
sharing, like these are incredibly different contexts, and it doesn't really make sense for them to be in exactly the same sea with exactly the same tooling. They've got all kinds of different assumptions that you would make about them if they were kind of real world contexts, and they've got different threat models, different sort of privacy models, different certainly different vibes, but wildly different needs. And I think it's really a because each platform wants to tend towards monopoly, they they start absorbing all of these different use cases that actually like maybe on a surface level feel like they're the same because they're broadly social, but actually don't really go together. And I don't know if it can ever work. Would be my take.
Apart from, I mean, can we can safely say that apart from Blue Sky, the application, which is built on AppProto, Blue Sky does not want to tend towards a monopoly, but Blue Sky,
Yeah.
the PBC, would like AppProto to be ubiquitous
Yeah.
and widely used. And I think like this is another way of talking about context collapse, right? Because it's like one of the analogies that people always use is, okay, so social networks are a bit like email. Like in some ways, you can think about them as a protocol for moving bits of communication around. And email has a whole bunch of different applications built on it. It's not really like in some senses at one layer of abstraction, it's not really useful to talk about email. You can talk about marketing mailing lists. You can talk about notifications. You can talk about closed group mailing lists for your friends. And those are the different types of contexts. But when we talk about social media or when we talk about Blue Sky or the entire platform, then that is too much of a collapse. That is because that's encompassing DHS, broadcasted, like in one respect, certain government entities broadcasting emergency notification and information, or certainly, relevant, useful information during an emergency, right? Definitely doing that. Then we're talking about different stuff like, a police department in Florida posting to its page, hey, this is the current state of things with where we're going around in our boats rescuing people, right? And then everyone people who use Facebook being able to congregate around that post, around that page, even if they don't follow it, and then being able to have a conversation there with the relevant authorities who can also use that to manage and direct their rescue efforts. But then we call all of this social media, and we don't. I think one of the things that you're saying, Ben, is that there aren't like the mini applications or the sub tools for managing the different kinds of uses of that media. Like one of them is, being able to tweet at Delta because you're having a really shitty time with your flight. But there's a difference between doing that if you're someone with tens of thousands of followers and you're someone with no followers. But then at some point, Delta will show up and they'll go, all right, okay, turns out that people want to use this as a customer support forum. And then the application that you need to build for that is like DMs.
Yeah, and sort of help desk DMs, like it goes quite deep there versus something that's more informal or is operating with a community in a different way. I think the safety implications for each of those are enormous.
Yeah. It's interesting to talk about the register and the function for some of this, and I think the DHS, the change in tone for the DHS under the Trump administration has been interesting, and I think some of that reflects an intent to use that for an entirely different purpose, right? And so fundamentally, actually, what we're seeing is kind of an argument about what the purpose of government is, and whose goals are we serving.
I mean, one point of view is that it's super smart what they're doing because they are incredibly savvy about the nature of communication and about how they can choose to use different avenues of communication to achieve political aims.
I was going to say that it is a misreading of what some of these accounts are for and taking their previous strategy when they were not in political power and just applying it again and assuming that they're going to get the same results, which I do not think is true.
I think we kind of just said the same thing.
Oh,
I think they know exactly what they're doing. I think they're using the same strategy. I do think in some cases, because in some cases they've spun up new accounts, and in other cases they've decided to use the existing accounts in a very, very different way. And I think, you can't really understand the intent, but like if the intent is there, then doing that on purpose, I think, reflects a different degree of understanding in, communications.
Now I want to know who is tracking all of the comms across the government. That's a really interesting question.
No one. Stephen Miller, when he has time.
Do you think he just shows up like Peter Capaldi in the thick of it and just yells at people when they're kind of going out of line, or when they're not being white supremacist enough or something, and then sort of disappears? Like, how would that work?
I mean, he must,
right? Fascinated by that guy in general. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like looking at his press appearances are enraging, but also fascinating, right? Like he's got a particular tack. It's very obvious, and he's just going to bulldoze over anyone. So I'm like, is that how he is in meetings? Right? Yeah. Awesome.
The whole thing is like it still feels like a sort of pin test for democracy, right? Like they're just like,
oh yeah.
All of these norms, that were just norms, are being fundamentally dismantled, and anywhere that they can get into the actual rules and dismantling them, they're doing that too. And it's sort of it's an argument for creating systems that are designed to work well even under the hands of the worst actor, which also I think has some some application to software and protocols and so on as well. But it's sort of a little bit terrifying watching it happening in real time.
Yeah, I mean, like there's, I've got two reactions to that. One is, yes, it's people should feel uncomfortable about the way that things are going, and also there's been people who've been talking about what is happening or what is going to happen for a very long time. I can remember Harper Reid in the summer of 2016 going like, people need to stop fucking around. They're like, this guy absolutely could get elected, and he was absolutely right. And it's like, what are the downstream consequences of all of this, right? And I think that's the second point, which is I think the gawking uh, prevents people from actually reasoning about the things that are going to happen next and the actions that people
Mm.
should be taking to prepare for the consequences that are coming our way. Like all of the stuff that's happening, like there's a lot of change going on, and that is going
Yeah.
to have ramifications. So, like, which
Yes.
ramifications? How are we going to figure that out? How are we going to adjust? How are we going to preserve the things that we think are important, whether that is channels of communications to our communities and the people who we want to interact with, whether that is our livelihoods and the industries that we function in, and so forth. Yeah.
And I mean, there's the ramifications of the change that's already that's already happening, and also kind of predictions of the change that will happen next, which will also have ramifications, right? It sort of feels like we're at the foothills of kind of cumulative effects that that will derive from both,
Yeah.
and it's very frustrating to see media be very reactive to the dumbest possible stuff when there is, yeah, and when I say media, I mean social media as well.
Yeah.
When there is, actual real, as you say, systemic change happening that will lead us to places that we really do need to reckon with. And I'm still in sort of conversations sometimes with folks who are like, nah, nothing's really going to change. They've sort of bought into the sort of the America Kool-Aid in a way, like it,
Yeah.
and it's like, no, that's just, the institutions, the norms are strong enough to be resilient to this, and it's sort of like, well, that's clearly not true. Like we're less than a year in, and look out the
Yeah.
window,
And
please.
yeah,
Yeah.
and demonstrably things do change because they're not the same as they were 100 years ago anyway,
Yeah.
right? That like the fact that things can move forward, or the fact, I mean, like things change anyway. That there is no inability for regression or anything, and there's certainly not, you can't go home, you can't go back to exactly where you were.
Yeah.
Um, I think a thing that is interesting, like, so one thing that might be interesting to talk about is whether or how or what set of technologies and protocols help people be resilient, or, and this is a bit of a leading question here, which is, or, you know what, we have most of them already, and most of the work that needs to be done doesn't have anything to do with technology at all, and it has to do with people working with other people and identifying what they want to achieve, and then going and doing that. And we have the tools for that already. We have good enough tools. And do we need to expend more time and effort? Like maybe they need to be more usable. Maybe they could be slightly better. Um, would a significantly better tool for collaboration than Google Docs like move the needle or demonstrably help in anything that people need to do to organize?
I think it's worth having a really good threat model for those tools, though. Like, I think it's worth asking the question, which of these tools that we have are the ones
Mm.
that could help? And I think, so let's take Google Docs. It's if I'm an, if I'm an activist, say, which I'm not, but if I was an activist and I was working a on a campaign for sort of for change that's working against the government, and I'm putting my plans in Google Docs, it is technically, if not necessarily legally possible, for somebody at a government level to go to Google and say, actually, I'm going to issue a criminal subpoena
Yeah.
for that data and get their hands on that data. Now, Google also has a client-side encryption offering at the enterprise level, right, which would mitigate that, but that's not something activists are going to have in their hands. And so it may actually be some of the tools that we're so used to at this point may potentially be actively harmful. We know that there was sort of warrantless surveillance that was conducted on journalists and activists in the
Yep.
first administration, and so that kind of thing may happen again. And so stuff like, on the other hand, like Signal, great, fantastic. Like let's talk about using that. But I think we need to maybe dial up kind of our paranoia a little bit when we're thinking about some of these tools based on the use case. And I think what I'd love to see is more, you know, sort of local software again, kind of
Yeah.
dive back into the 90s. And what's kind of fun is seeing all of these other this sort of dovetails with the trend now of all of these other locales kind of going, "Ooh, we don't want to depend on American software anymore. We'd better think
Right,
about our own
right.
infrastructure and tools." And I think actually that those movements
Yes.
can dovetail. The stuff that's going to be
Yes.
useful for change here, the stuff that's going to be useful for change there, can actually be the same, which would be
Right.
great.
Because the intersection is sovereignty,
Yeah.
essentially, and control.
Yeah, so the local first software movement, I think, is absolutely super important. And actually, I'll note that some of the same people who are involved in local first now, for example, the folks out of Ink and Switch, were also involved in some of the protocol design around AppProto. And so there's
I
like
did
quite
not know that.
literally a connection there. But also, I think that it's important to think about the distribution of storage and compute. But I'll also say on the flip side to that, one of the challenges around this is still, while a random police officer is not going to go kick down the door at a Google data center and pull your computer off the rack, they can do that if you are self-hosting at home.
Right.
And
And I was going to
the
bring
threat
up,
model changes, right?
yeah, and I was going to bring up, there was, for my sins, I was reading Hacker News, and there was a post that someone had, an article that had made it there about how someone had very clearly said self-hosted is not the future, because I'm like, we are all old enough, I think, are in the same boat to say I would really rather not self-host things anymore, because just sysadmining all of the shit and just keeping up to date with OS level 0 days or anything like, that's just, I don't want to do that. I have children. I have a hard enough time running the Plex server for their audiobooks than I do for like anything. Like that's already reached the limit for me. So there's this, because it feels like there's still this tension between, like, so there's the physical aspect of, okay, well, if you're self-hosting, then there is a thing somewhere that might even be in your house, and then someone can go grab the thing that's in your house. Then there's the other end of it, which is, all right, well, on the other hand, I can try, like Google can definitely do things that smaller organizations cannot do. They can definitely assure security or encryption in a way that's probably more trustable than some other organizations. But then you get to somewhere in the middle, which is, okay, well, if and the way that I'm kind of making this up is like, if there's an early 2000s Cory Doctorow book about the software in a box that helps you, take back your neighborhood, I think one of the versions was it runs on a rooted Xbox with a mesh Wi-Fi network in Little Brother, right? And it's like, and there's people going around with CDs and DVDs that you can just boot them off and then start putting up a network like that. Then it's that kind of, okay, well, what is the, I don't know, what's the drop-in replacement? Because I think we see stuff, was it France? That there's a city in France that's one of the latest examples of, we're going to junk Windows, we're going to ditch Office, we're going to switch to something else, because we've either reached the point where the line of easy enough to do and the pain or the threat model of staying on Windows and staying on Google or G Suite or whatever it's called this week is now like politically unbearable. Or we really, really need to have independent, like we really need to have that sovereignty and that control and that assurance that, okay, fine. And the threat model that the Trump administration is just going to go and get our stuff because they can.
Yeah.
So how does it work? Because it doesn't feel like, because one of the alternatives is what, like, here's your droplet that you go, like, go here, click on this droplet, or like it's the DreamHost kind of, oh, here's a managed WordPress for you to use. Like, there's not, where does this, so there's the protocols, there's the software, there's the architecture.
I mean, some of it's also the distributed hardware, right? Like we started off this conversation talking about the fact that Raspberry Pis are super cheap and easy to acquire, and you can do all kinds of things with it, right? I mean, like, I was going to joke that, I mean, I went from hosting things with Document Cloud to, when I left Document Cloud, being like, I never want to run a server ever again.
Right.
And that went on for a number of years, and now I have a whole bunch of Raspberry Pis and a little home lab.
Or certainly you don't want to run a server that other people rely on using.
Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to run a server that I rely on. I don't like. I'm done.
Don't like it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of the challenges with the local first thing, but I
Yeah.
mean, like this kind of is
Yeah.
part of where the Blue Sky Net proto conversation is going too, which is like which pieces of this are hostable elsewhere, what part of the infrastructure should you own and control, and what are the practical means of control that you actually have over them.
I like sort of some of the conversation that's emerging over actually on the Mastodon side about communities and infrastructure that's run and owned by cooperatives feels very nice to me, and I've seen that happen in real world contexts like slightly out there real world contexts like eco villages and kind of and places where people have intentionally come together, but they have created infrastructure together such that not everybody has to maintain their own server. Not everybody has to be sort of technical to see the advantages from it. There may be some answer there, but it's definitely not a given, and it's so incredibly simple to use the alternatives. Cloud is definitely the default. There's definitely like I wish I've said this a lot. Like I really wish that there was a server that just ran like an iPhone, right? That was not. I don't care about I do care, but I don't want to have to care about going down to the shell level and like configuring it especially for myself. I want there. I'm a-okay with there being some kind of distributed app store, and there's just like a container that updates itself from time to time and is totally self-contained.
People kind of treat, was it I can't remember the brand that makes the NAS boxes that do this, but they've got like a store and then it essentially runs Docker, and then you can go to the, I think it's QNAP, maybe it's QNAP or one of the other ones, but because it's just a computer anyway, and then you can download containers. It's like, all right, well, here's your one-click install for Plex, and then it'll auto update and stuff like that. But I'm definitely the sufficiently secure. So like you're saying, that Apple model of, okay, well, I trust that Apple says that no one else can get into this, right? And that Apple are doing their best that no one else can get into this. So I trust their chain of trust, so that when it needs an update, then I can trust everything all the way through to whoever's providing that. And then you start to add stuff like, okay, well, can these mesh together, or can these be sharded together in some way, right? Where I get one of these and I install the collaborative document editing server / application on it, right? And then I think the problem is that this is always relied on asymmetrical connectivity and network connectivity, right? It's like, okay, well, if we're distributing storage, then how do you distribute in such a way that it is, accessible in a good enough, fast enough, low latency enough way? If it is essentially on the end of a whole bunch of 5G or LTE or residential internet connections, which we're not allowed to, which it takes a simple change of terms of service to say, oh no, you're not. I can't even remember if we're allowed to host things on the end of residential internet connections anymore, or if they just exist at the largesse of whichever ISP.
I called Verizon this week to actually ask them this question. I thought I'd go through the front door and be like, I would like to. This goes against me saying
Right.
I never want to run my own server. I called Verizon to run my own server, but they and I called them up and they were like, yeah, you can subscribe to the business line, the business
Right.
package if you want to do that.
Right.
And I was like, okay, well, tell me what's involved in that. And they're like, well, we kind of want to lock you in for a number of years at a price that is dramatically higher than it would cost to just have a VPS, somewhere sensible. I'm like, well, that kind of, I'd have access to the box, but that's not great. Yeah, it's not a. But I will also say, like, I don't know that it needs to be a replacement for every single use case. Like, if we're talking about specifically people who are working in these contrary circles, who are trying to make bring about social change, who are kind of working on very specific things, who have a higher threat model, like potentially it is okay to be slower, right? At least to start with.
And I suspect, Bet, like you might have a good answer to this. I spent a very, very small amount of time looking at the local and community news space a couple of years ago. But and I think you've done this in terms of like, if I ran XYZ. So if I ran a union, right? If I was running a local union chapter and we did not have national infrastructure to fall back on, right now my choices are something like, right, I'll set up my local union on Google suite of stuff or Microsoft suite of stuff. And there isn't really a good alternative to any of that, right? Like the amount of rolling your own, then it'd be like, okay, right, I've got my local union chapter. Now I'm going to go to Fastmail to set up my mail services. I guess Fastmail can also give me calendaring. It gives me WebDAV. It gives me address books and stuff like that. But then if I want document editing and document sharing, then do we just still go back to Google? And at the end of that, like, is Google okay? The threat model, like you're saying, right? Is that okay? Like these days, it might not be okay for a union to be, in the way that threat models change and in the way that politics change.
Yeah, or it might not be okay for certain types of data that they might need to store, and okay for other bits. Yeah,
right.
We're at the top of the hour, and
Yeah,
I want to make sure that we're not keeping Ben hostage forever.
I've really enjoyed this conversation. I literally have to go to therapy. That's not a joke. I'm going to therapy after this. So I'm delighted to be brought into this. This was what an absolute delight and a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Do you have
both
anything
for-
you
that
have
you want
to
to
go
plug?
to.
Sorry.
Do I have anything that I want to plug?
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to plug my day job. So
Yeah.
I'm going to plug. I work for ProPublica. It's a non-profit newsroom that investigates abuse of
excellent
power
work.
in the public interest. That I'm not a journalist, but I support the journalists. They are amazing. I hear there might be some abuses of power in the public interest happening right now, and we do run the most depressing site on the web, but it's important work. We just ran a thing about how ICE are just like literally smashing their way in through people's cars to get to people. We named Doge members. We've done, we brought about the story about Clarence Thomas's sort of
Oh, yeah.
corruption and bribes. So please, anyone who's watching, go take a look, ProPublica.org. It's all free to watch, but it is a nonprofit and could use your donation if you got it.
Yeah.
you.
Yes, they do amazing work, and Ben does amazing work there. So thank you for
Yes.
joining us, and have fun at
Thank
therapy.
you.
Thank you, Ben. Bye.
All right. See you later.
See ya.
Bye.
We should point out that Ben needed to go. Ben had already scheduled therapy. When he said that he had to go to therapy after this, it didn't mean that this meant that he then had to. That's just to make sure that that's clear.
I like that we started our conversation with Ben with a misunderstanding, and then also left the conversation with an ambiguous misunderstanding.
Realize needing clarification in some way.
Which, for everybody else, we asked Ben if he wanted to join us, and he said, "Do I need to put on a shirt?" By which he meant button-down shirt, and we thought he meant whether he was coming on topless or not.
So there's a thing here as we are potentially finishing up, right? Which is that to get people to switch to a thing, like a threat model is a threat, or a newly visible threat is a reason to get people that will help people overcome switching cost, right? So we've seen that at least twice. We saw that on social networks with Mastodon, when people went from Twitter to Mastodon, to then X to Mastodon. We've seen it a bit with Blue Sky as well. And the conversation with Ben just now helped me realize that, and just the way talking through it, like if I'm a union, like what classes of people or what groups of people have threat models that have changed that make it easier for them to change to something else. Like one easy example is I've got friends who who do a bunch of organizing, right? And they have friends who are older, and the older friends really want to help, but they really also cannot figure out and will not use Signal.
Yeah.
So a lot of the question is, okay, well, you people who won't use Signal, you just keep doing what you're doing, right? And that's great. but then there are going to be a bunch of separate people who are using Signal, and we're not going to talk about the same kind of stuff. Like we have to maintain some kind of separation because we're worried about different things, or we're going to treat we actually see these as different. We actually treat these as different threats and different level of threat. I just don't know how. I'm just making this shit up. In the history of software, in the history of software, right? Because you have to beat free. You don't just have the right. So we talked about this in terms of like Goodreads, right? And how there's like a Goodreads equivalent on that runs on ActivityPub.
Yeah, Bookworm. That's made by
right?
Mouse Reeve. Yeah.
Right. I used it for a bit. It's not better than Goodreads. For me, the only reason, we talked about this before, the only reason for me to use it is because it's not Goodreads, not because it runs on ActivityPub. Like, I'm super interested in ActivityPub, but the main reason is that it's not Goodreads, and that is just not good enough for most. Like, not being the thing isn't necessarily enough of a reason to switch.
Yeah.
Like, just being the same thing, but somewhere else is not. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So switching costs, I think, are a really big thing about these things. And people in software have talked about this forever. The VC-driven world is all about network effects for two reasons. Network effects for the ability to expand rapidly, but then also network effects so that you can lock in a network once you've captured them. And the switching costs exist, and there are moments that catalyze them. The question is whether you're prepared to do stuff. And this is one of the things that I feel strongly about in terms of the architecture of things like ActivityPub versus AppProto, where I'm like, AppProto is designed to scale much better if you know how to build things, whereas like ActivityPub is at kind of at the protocol level, structured around DDoSing servers in the network.
Service, yeah.
And I think that's a challenge in terms of, and you can actually see that in terms of the initial waves after,
when he writes a
yeah. Well, there's all kinds of examples, but basically, like, I'm always talking about Dig to Reddit moments, right? Dig was a huge news aggregator for a really long time, and kind of blew themselves up in their third incarnation and released a bunch of software that nobody liked. And Reddit really capitalized on that moment in terms of drawing the user base over and retaining them, and has continued to this day. And Dig is kind of a footnote that gets sold from sole proprietor to sole proprietor at this point. This also reflects the changes after Elon bought Twitter, which is there was initial rush into Mastodon. It dropped Mastodon, actually. Mastodon was down during some of the critical periods there. And where Blue Sky has maintained their ability to catch those waves, it's been really important for Blue Sky's growth. But there's two sides to that. One, which is the like, can you catch these waves? Can you actually scale to the attention of the internet? And the other part about it is at that local or smaller level, can you build a thing that you can launch and capitalize on a new opportunity? One of the things I was going to mention earlier was the fact that like you can see in the response to the Trump administration over the past 6 months, software pop up, or policy failures that have resulted in people doing certain things. In California, there are apps that have cropped up around crowdsourcing fire data and giving people alerts around fire things. The relevant example for the Trump administration is IceBlock, which was released through iOS. And that's a complicated story in a pile of ways, but the app platforms are clearly things where somebody can whack together an app, launch it, and get it out the door in order to respond to a thing. Can you do that and actually grow to the size necessary to actually fulfill the need is one of the really interesting questions with any of these platforms. And what needs are you serving? Are you serving just your local community? Are you trying to serve a broader purpose and so forth, right?
So here's a dumb question that made me think of, right? So T is a big deal right now.
Yes, the TEA, the app.
Yes, TEA, the app that is for people who are definitely women. It's a Whisper network. It's a Whisper app, right? It's the spreadsheet that's turned into an app that anyone can sign up for, and by all accounts and purposes, it is incredibly terribly implemented in a way that just leaks privacy everywhere.
Yeah.
There we go. This is going to be one of those irritating questions, which is that it was clear, like however T was built, it's clear that it was easy enough to build it quickly that way, and also to build it wrong that way. Because in a way, I'm trying to think. It's a message board. So if we're talking about, better protocols, or if we're talking about something like AppProto, then does it even make sense to consider the question, could AppProto have been part of T? Would AppProto make something like T better in any way? And we kind of started off the day with developers. It's like, so if I'm making T, is there any, would I have been aware of AppProto in any way? Is there any way in which I might have considered that AppProto could have been useful or good for what I was building or making as a fundamentally social application? Right. So how does it?
Yeah.
Would I even know about it? Why would I even choose to use something or to even research something like AppProto when I'm building something like T?
Yeah. So AppProto at the current moment, I would say would have some challenges for the following reason. Everything in the AppProto network right now is public. So there is no private posting. If somebody knows where to look up a URL, they can see the contents. The Blue Sky, the app, and the app view provide a few affordances to sort of conveniences like, I'm not going to let you see this unless you log in with your Blue Sky account, right? And that is a practical barrier for casual users. But again, if somebody's got a URL, they can actually use tools to go look up what the contents of that post
is. You can just go try and crawl,
Right. And so that means that in building an app just straight up off of AppProto wouldn't quite fit the bill for a private forum. However, you could bootstrap something off of AppProto identity and then have a private message board. And that way you wouldn't necessarily have to manage all of the user accounts, but you would have to manage the message board part and all of the post contents. And in the future, one of the things that the community is really interested in is what does private data look like in the AppProto network? And that's something that the AppProto Community Fund that I'm part of is really interested in, and how do we get funding in order to really drive that forward? Because I think that, to me, private data is actually a critical feature within the network and its longevity, its ability to exist over the long term. And at that point,
I'd almost say that. Yeah, and I'd almost say that at this political moment in the world, if you don't support some sort of private, if your platform or library doesn't support some sort of privacy or encryption, then you're really not that useful.
I don't agree, or I kind of agree.
Or you're not useful enough.
Yes. So I'm contradicting myself a little bit in saying that I think that private data is critical for Proto's long-term survival.
Yes.
I think actually the most important thing that we can have right now is clarity about what kind of guarantees a system gives you. So, for example, going out the door saying AppProto is just for public things. There are plenty of things I want to do in public. There are plenty of things I'm not embarrassed to do in public, and I don't think are going to be a potential threat. That's why I post, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay to an extent. I still do need private things. But that means I'm going to go somewhere else for those private things. And so there's that on the one hand. I also do think that it does need private data. And Blue Sky actually has one form of privateness, which is the private DMs that are wholly within Blue Sky, the app. That's not an AppProto thing. It's just within the app. And I think that they saw that as a critical feature for some ability to transact privately.
Where are the DMs stored? Are they on my PDS, or are they somewhere else?
Nope, they're in a Blue Sky database.
Blue Sky. Okay, so Blue Sky, the company, runs a completely separate Blue Sky database for Blue Sky, the application DMs that is just off AppProto.
Yeah, Blue Sky Chat. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
currently at this moment, that's the way that you would implement that. So, you could blow T up into T, the chat app. That's all private and uses that proto for identity, but wouldn't share anything else about what's in that database. Um,
Yeah.
the story gets more complicated once you have, depending on what kind of shape private data takes on the App Proto network and how that data gets stored in PDSs.
Yeah. So then my other dumb question is: have people looked at doing a Reddit skeuomorph on Proto?
Yep. Front page.fyi.
Always right, like Lemmy.
Yes,
Lemmy
but
being
less
a federated
tanky.
active.
Lemmy has some problems.
Mm-hmm.
Lemmy has they've fixed most of their trust and safety problems, which is good since they there there were some serious problems. Oh, is it going to let me do this? And here, I'll just log in with Combat. Lemmy is a activity pub. This is gonna. Hold on one second. To Han. Combat Blue Sky. There we go.
Yeah.
Boop. Boop. Anyway. Yeah, so this is Reddit, functionally speaking, although right now it doesn't seem particularly active. We could push more people to do stuff, right? Like you can do all the things that you'd expect. Oh wow, that's even more stripped down than I thought. And the stuff that you post here gets stored in your PDS, I believe.
Oh, cool. That's weird.
Wow, they really don't highlight the. Sorry, say again.
I'm trying to use an app password to log into front page, and it's not. Whoa! What just happened? It's not letting me.
But this is another example of this being a tool that has not yet found its community, and certainly could use a little bit of help doing that.
Yeah, it's like a. I mean, these are like these. I treat these more as proof of concepts. Like, can you build something of this shape? Or what does something of this shape look like? And it's not necessarily a thing that anyone's going to use, but it's more like the exercise. Let's learn how to build an X on a Y.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing that I think that it's worth talking about, which is like, what's the striking distance between demo and production, and whether these things can scale and how they scale. And so some of it just like, can your website withstand a certain amount of traffic, and then how many transactions per unit of time can you handle, right? And so like the architectural things about the way that App Proto is set up means that you can withstand you can distribute some of the load a little bit differently, and like you're not running most of the data layer for people who want to use the platform, and you're not carrying the cost of the users across the entire network. It is largely just the users who show up and log into your
thing. Front page feels more like a dig or a Hacker News than a Reddit that allows creation of subreddits just by looking at the front page.
All right? That's true. Yeah.
Okay.
So less community aspect to it now.
Yes.
Although I wonder if front page FYI GitHub, is there GitHub for this? Yeah, there is.
Woo! Made by from. Oh, it's got annoying.
It's got annoying what?
It's got annoying infinite scroll, so that if I want to hit the link that's in the footer, I have to do it. I have to get it before it moves.
Oh, I missed it. Oh no, did I get it? I did get it. That's just a link to the.
That's just a link to the Blue Sky account. Okay, yes, it's a link aggregator, which is one way to describe Reddit, but not the most interesting way to describe Reddit, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm. Were we going to have a fight? Shall we have a fight before
Yeah, we've
we?
had a couple of disagreements, but yeah, let's have a fight.
Okay,
We
right.
didn't get to ask Ben about this, but the uh, the other thing that's been going on is, did you see that Netflix is like all in on K-pop Demon Hunters?
I saw a search results that said that they were all in on a website that I had not ever heard before, so I am treating it as unverified rumor.
What website? Out of curiosity.
I don't know. I don't even remember. It was like a Google snippet thing. It was like, oh yeah, they're going to do two more sequels and maybe a live action thing and a stage musical. I'm like, sure.
Stage musical?
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, I suppose. Uh,
Like Disney do stage or live performances of a whole bunch of their tween
yeah.
musical shows.
It
I'm
says
now
there's.
aware of.
Oh, it was on The Wrap. Okay, actually,
Yeah,
first I should
see,
ask:
I'm like,
Have you seen K-pop Demon Hunters?
I have seen K-pop Demon Hunters. Um, there is a way of reading it like a Pixar film. Um,
Say more.
yeah, because it's all about unresolved trauma with your parents.
Okay, yeah. Uh, uh,
Someone is an orphan. Someone is an orphan.
yeah. I mean, yeah, that's interesting because I'm like, is it more? Because I mean, yeah, so K-pop Demon Hunters, first for everybody, was created by the Sony studio that did the Spider-Man Spider-Verse films,
Yes.
which have been
Yep.
incredible. And watching them do this is also amazing.
Yes.
And I have also watched it at least twice now. um, yeah,
Yeah, Sony Pictures Animation, I think, credited and responsible for like a massive change in the aesthetics of computer animation. Like they kind of heralded the stuff doesn't have to look like Pixar stuff.
yeah.
Doesn't have to look photorealistic. Doesn't have to look like Pixar stuff. There is another way, and it turns out that that other way is pretty damn awesome, and very freeing for people.
Yeah,
Um,
it was a little bit interesting to me because I'm not particularly into K-pop and have just mostly missed that wave. And this is an extremely accessible way to get into a bunch of uh, K-pop. And I think the first things that I saw were Instagram moms being like, wow, the music in this is really catchy. And then
yeah,
me being like, that's interesting, and reading about it and being like, oh, they had people who actually produce K-pop professionally
right, yeah,
involved in the music production.
yeah. Um, did you choose to watch it, or were you forced to? Because I was forced to.
I chose to watch it. I was
Okay,
curious.
right. Everyone
Uh,
else in my family had seen it already, so then I was forced to watch it. So when I watched it, it was at least the second time for everyone else.
uh,
I think it was the third time for my oldest kid. They made me listen to the soundtrack to the album before I watched it,
okay.
and I was like, these are okay. I'm not really like they're fine. I'm not really that into any of them. Actually, out of all of them, I'm into the score suite more than anything else. But after I watched it, I was like, oh, okay, right, I get it. Yes, I like these songs now.
Yeah.
But you think that K-pop Demon Hunters is either not good or bad, actually?
Nah, yeah, I mean, my take on this is I enjoyed the films. I particularly enjoyed the music. Lukewarm on the script, and in particular the like broader messaging for the film, which is yes, this is a film that's kind of about intergenerational trauma, but intergenerational trauma that they completely don't address or characterize particularly well, right? I think both Jinu's characterization of like why he is in the predicament that he is in and what is redeemable about him or not completely unaddressed. The trauma around what is the demon hunter's mother figure, like all of
Elaine,
that stuff was like random quick vignettes and like
I
references
didn't even know. Yeah,
as opposed to like any characterization about that. So I'm like, oh, they're talking about that intergenerational trauma exists here, and we are not going to actually talk about or make relatable any of the pieces of this and deal with the fact that there's shame, right? Like that's my key problem with this film, which is they beat the demons in the end, and nothing else is resolved. Yeah, like so the message here is yes, we have shame, and yes, you are going to need to process it. We're not going to talk about processing it. We're not going to talk about the consequences of processing it. And like I, it's not really.
It's a very specific moment in time of what is clearly
They could have made this movie
must be
10
a
or
larger
20 minutes longer and
yes.
done a much, much better job with this movie.
Yes, there was a whole bunch that was missing from it because you do not know. I was like, Celine, wait, is Celine is Celine her mother? No, not her
No.
mother, but someone else. But someone who knows about the stuff and is their mentor slash guide
Yes.
person, maybe.
Clear, so, Rumi's mother, Demon Hunter,
Yes, right.
dies because clearly she fell in love with a demon and produced Rumi.
Yes,
Celine, her bandmate,
trying to do the best she could.
right, but not being able to overcome whatever hatred she has for demons.
Prejudice,
Right, exactly, right. So like unexplored, unexamined, and like in this case, the characterization of like Selena is actually a terrible person, like kind of a monster, and that is also not addressed. like has baked this girl's brain to the point where she begged her mother figure to kill her. Right, like that's messed up. That's not a thing that.
Yes, yes. No, it's not. I think. Yeah. So, like you say, it is a very high level, surface level story, but that I think at the same time is super. Because of that, it's super easy for people to identify with, right? Because I was explaining it to. I was talking about it with our 8-year-old. And part of the context here is that our 12-year-old had recently gone to one of the Pride marches and had come home and was really excited to say that, hey, look, there were people out there giving like free mom hugs and free dad hugs, right? And he was really like moved by that. And the 8-year-old was also like when he understood, he was really moved by that. And part of what we were talking about was, look, that is so Celine. Completely wholly rejected an integral part of Rumi's identity, made her hide it, right? Told her that if she did all of this stuff, like it would essentially go away, right? And so that Rumi didn't have anyone. So then the discussion was a bit like, did you know? And she was like, yeah. The kid was like, yeah, that doesn't seem really realistic. Like, what kind of parent would do that? And I was like, oh, let me tell you that there are parents doing this right now. And not only that, but they actually think that their children are possessed by demons. Like there are parents out there who disown their children, right? They won't talk with them. They think that they are wrong. They will send them away to get fixed because the kid has or knows that they might be, for example, gay or trans or whichever. And then whichever parental figure refuses to accept that and says, look, if you just do this one thing, then everything will be okay. And then I can accept you, but actually you're really wrong.
The thing yes, because you are good parents, you guys can discuss that. But that's not the case for everyone. And like this is what frustrates me about this film, which is like it mentions it, but it's not like her found community is with literally her nemesis, and like she doesn't find some other community. It's like, oh, her friends accept her for who she is or whatever, but there's not again any engagement.
But do they? They just, I mean, like,
yeah.
Yes. What happens next? So some of the discussion that I saw was like, yes, okay, very interested in what happens next, but also interested in what's the deal with Rumi being born in the first place. Like what happened? Then first for
you could do a prequel.
You know, what's the thought? Yeah, you totally do a prequel, right? Like you don't have to ruin everything. There's a lot to explore in the prequel, and then but just at a very high level, I think it's can we do an effective story about how shame is bad? That's it.
Yeah.
So I think it's good at that. Bad in that it could have been so much more.
Yeah. I mean, my challenge with this still is that Rumi has nothing to be ashamed about. She has done nothing. So she's not responsible for her shame, fundamentally. It's been
Yes.
placed there by
Yes.
somebody else.
Yes.
And Genu is absolutely responsible for his shame. And
Maybe we don't know. He's still an unreliable narrator at the very end.
okay, that's fair. That's fair. But again, it's sort of like dealing with the consequences of that, or like what it actually means to reckon with any of it. Like, and this is one of the things I was going to bring up. N.K. Jemisin, who wrote the Broken Earth trilogy,
Yep.
amazing
Yep.
series of books, very good science fiction.
Mhm.
N.K. Wrote a previous series that is about deities, and it's like very clearly YA. It is much earlier on in her authorial life, but like in some ways, I like this series better than the Broken Earth, even though it's a little bit rougher to read.
Is it the one about the cities that are alive?
No, this is
Okay.
although that's good too. This is a series about what happens if God kills another deity, and what you do in the wake of deities committing homicide. And you have a pantheon who has to live with each
Right.
other for eternity, but one of them does
Yes.
something unforgivable.
Very
Um,
Greek.
and the consequences of living not just in the wake of trauma and loss,
Hmm.
but how you deal with the inability to atone or for other people to forgive.
Okay.
And so it's really about the full cycle of that trauma, right? And I think it's a really good example of people who didn't know the people who were directly involved in the trauma, but are coming into the story after that trauma and seeing the consequences of it. And it's an excellent series dealing with that. And I'm like, yeah, how do we get more of this in
Right.
the world of K-pop Demon Hunters?
Because I think one other thing that isn't really explained is when the demon hunters hunt demons and then they kill them, they are killed dead. Those souls are gone.
Yeah.
But again, like, not really their fault. Is that a bad thing? Should they be killing them? They should just be able to coexist. That seems to be the implication. They're
Yeah.
just being trapped by evil, bad demon guy who looks like
Guima.
a big red thing.
Yeah.
Queen, yeah. So there is no necessary. There's like I thought that there was like a slight hint of Rumi going, "Holy fucking shit, am I a genocider?" How many thousands of actual people, thinking, feeling people have I murdered because I was lied to?
Yeah.
Because this was simplistically turned into a fight of good against evil.
Yeah.
Which again, like the mere presence of the word demon hunter in there, I'm like, all right, so this is like 3 seasons worth of Buffy.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack here about what's going on and who's doing it and why. Plus singing.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So
also not into K-pop, but there's pretty good songs.
Yeah. I would look forward to more content. It's been interesting watching people do covers of the tracks too on Instagram and YouTube.
Have you seen the public performance lip syncs?
No.
So I had to find out how they were made because they look like the first time I saw one, it looked like it'd been filmed by drone.
Mm.
But no, the camera operator is just, obviously knows the choreography right down, and they just use very good gimbals. And extensive use of post-production, motion stabilization, and focus following.
I did see one in Times Square, but I don't know if that's which is good. But,
yeah, it's just weird because the videos look incredibly overproduced.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is like in the way that there is no camera wobble whatsoever. So I'm like, I need to know how this was done. Like aside from the post processing, like it's just weird that the fact that there is no camera wobble whatsoever, and it's like on the world's steadiest Steadicam. It's like this just looks, the aesthetic for this is just really interesting.
Yeah. We need to find somebody to talk to about K-pop Demon Hunters next time.
Yes, yeah, we did. We should. I think that might be it for today. Is that it for today?
Yeah. Let's call it a wrap.
Yeah. Cool.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks especially to Ben, and everyone should go check out and donate to ProPublica.
Yeah. I dropped a link in the thread that we posted,
Nice.
including some of the links. So.
Nice.
All right.
Nice.
Well,